Okay, well, we're having technical difficulties here, but we're going to give this a shot. So what we're looking for today is the characteristics of living things. And we just basically want to go over how we characterize them, how we define them. Living things in general we're going to call organisms. So anything that we consider a living thing, whether it's microscopic or as large as a whale or whatever, we're going to call it an organism. And we want to basically look at using some mnemonic devices. A mnemonic device is simply anything that helps us remember. It's a memory trick. Alright, so mnemonic devices is something that help you remember something you're trying to keep track of. And then the mnemonic device we're going to look at today is an acronym, which is using letters to represent something. We use acronyms all the time just to simplify things, make it easier, shorter to say. So we know what the NBA is, the National Basketball Association, the NFL, National Football League, ACCESS, caring community, enabling student success, empowering student success, and ICBM is Intercontinental Ballistic Missile. But ICBM is also can be used to help you remember as a mnemonic device rather than just represent Intercontinental Ballistic Missile. If you look at the teeth and you go from the front, middle of the mouth back towards the side of the mouth, the order of the teeth are the incisors, the cuspids, the bicuspids, and the molars. So we can also use this ICBM as a way to remember the order of something. And so what we're going to use here is the word organized. And we're going to use that in order to help us remember the characteristics of living things. The idea here is that in order to be a living thing, it has to have all of these characteristics. So we're going to take organized, and we're going to basically spell it down the side here, and then indicate what is represented by each of those letters. There's a D down there somewhere too. Okay, so O, and the reason we're using the word organized is because O stands for the word organized. All living things have highly specific parts with special functions. For example, the parts of a cell. So all living things are organized to a high degree. They have certain things in certain places because they have certain functions to carry on. It's not just a random, kind of throwing together of materials. All living things reproduce. They're able to reproduce offspring, to produce members of the same species. So members of the species that we're talking about are able to produce offspring, and there's two ways they can do that. They can either do that sexually by having two parents, each contribute genetic material to the offspring, and they can do it asexually where one parent produces all of the genes and the offspring is essentially a clone of the parent. Okay, then G stands for grow and develop. Simply put, growing means getting bigger, and develop means going through developmental changes. So if a little baby just grew and didn't develop, then they would keep the baby fat and they would kind of grow up to be kind of a Stay Puft Marshmallow Man as an adult. We see more obvious development when caterpillars go through the metamorphosis to become butterflies or tadpoles become frogs, but all living things are going to grow and get bigger, and they're also going to go through some stages of development where they change from one form to another. Okay, A means to adjust to the environment, and that can be both internally and externally. Externally is just responding to the environment, responding to stimuli. You hear a loud bang, you jump, you turn, you look, you see what it is. You feel heat, you burn yourself, you pull back. So that's just responding to external stimuli. And then we also talk about internal, adjusting to their internal environment, which we also refer to as homeostasis. Homeostasis is the maintenance of an internal environment, keeping your blood at 98 degrees, keeping your blood temperature at a certain temperature, keeping the pH of your blood. All the internal environments that we're going to see help the cells and help the tissues function as they go. Okay, N is for needs energy. So all living things need energy. They all take in energy, and as a result, they all go through all cells go through cellular respiration. and as a result of that, they all produce waste. So all living things are going to be organized. They're going to produce members that, be able to reproduce and have offspring. They're going to grow and get bigger. They're going to develop and change during their lifetime. They're going to adjust to their external environment, and they're going to be able to maintain homeostasis by adjusting to their internal environment. They need energy to do all of that, and that energy is at the cellular level, cellular respiration. And the is we're going to use, kind of cheat a little bit and just say is means that it's made of cells. So all living things are made of cells, which is why they have this cellular respiration. They can be unicellular, and the whole living thing can be just one single cell, or of course they can be multicellular, and they can have specialized cells like we do nerve cells, muscle cells, skin cells, bone cells, all that have different functions, and that goes back to this whole idea of being organized and having specific parts that do specific things. The last couple things then, E stands for evolution. All living things as a species evolve. We're going to refer to evolution. Of course, we'll learn a whole lot more about that later, but evolution is basically a slow change over time. It's not going to show up on me here. A slow change over time, and we'll see that also involves changing in the gene pool. We look at how genes change over time, and that brings us to the last one. The D stands for DNA. So all living things have some genetic material that stores basically the instructions for how the living thing is run and how all the functions are carried out. Alright, so in order to be a living thing and considered a living thing, it has to have all of these characteristics. It has to be highly organized. It has to grow and reproduce, not necessarily an individual species, an individual member. You can certainly have a baby that's only 4 years old and not old enough to reproduce and is still alive, but you can also have a woman who's had to have a because of cancer, had to have her ovaries removed, and she's not able to reproduce herself. That still doesn't mean she's alive. But as a species, the species has to be able to reproduce offspring. They grow and develop. They adjust to their environment both externally and internally with homeostasis. They all need energy, and they all go through cellular respiration at the cellular level because they're all made of cells. And as a result, they also produce waste. They can be made of one cell or multicellular, but they're all made of cells. They evolve as a species, and then they have some DNA, they have genetic material that contains all their information. If they have all of these things, they're considered a living thing. If they're missing even just one of these things, then it would not be considered alive. So you can be highly organized and grow and not be alive. You could need energy and respond to your environment and not be alive. But you need to have all of these characteristics to be considered a living thing.